Now we're going to start the setup for our level objects and our assets. The first thing that I want to do is I want to create my timeline asset. So I'm going to find a folder down here. With the 2DGameKit, I actually like to make a separate folder. I was doing some experiments right here. I'm just going to call this project 2. A lot of times I also like to put an underscore just so it jumps up to the very top. Or should if it didn't organize. Okay, so it's pretty close to the top. That's fine. I'm also going to create my timeline asset. So this is like any other assets in your project folder. You just right click, create, and it's one of these. Timeline right here. I'm going to give this a name. We're going to make an opening cutscene for our level. So I'm going to call this opening. Okay, and actually because I might have doors opening or other things, I'm going to call this level opening. We'll call this actually intro cutscene. I think that'd be best. Okay, so this is our timeline asset. This is going to have all our object data. And now we want to start setting up our scene to organize our level objects. So what I like to do is, I'm actually going to, this could be handy. I'm going to duplicate one of these little things right here. I'm going to relabel this cutscenes. I don't normally do this, but since we're already organized this way, I'm gonna keep with the convention. Okay, down here, I'm going to make an empty game object. So right click, create empty, F2 to rename. I'm gonna call this cutscenes. Okay, this is going to organize all of my cutscene objects. Now, because I could potentially have many cutscenes in my scene, I'm going to create child objects of this cutscene. So this is going to be my organizer. So actually, before I do that, I'm going to zero this out, 0, 0, 0. Just make sure that this is organized and clean. All right, cutscenes, make a child object. So click cutscenes, right click, create empty, F2 to rename. We'll call this intro. We'll just call this intro because we're under cutscenes. All right, now inside of my intro cutscene object, this is, and just double check to make sure that all this is 0 transformations. This is where if I have extra objects that I want or need inside of my intro cutscene, like maybe I have meteors flying in the background, maybe I have spaceships, maybe I have enemies, whatever. I'm going to make these child objects of my intro cutscene so that I can keep an eye on them, basically. Because when you're creating cutscenes, you may want to use all different sorts of objects, and you may only want to use them once or throw some stuff in your scene. If you lose track of that, it's going to start interfering with gameplay. So I want to have everything related to my cutscene, or as much as I can, underneath the intro, and then I'll just turn them on and off. So the next thing I need, I have my intro game object. Let's see here. Next thing is I want a playable director. So on my intro cutscene, back with this chart that I showed you, we have our timeline asset, but we need a game object and a component in order to trigger this timeline asset. So I'm going to put this on the root of each of my cutscenes. So if I had an intro, I'd put it here. I'm going to duplicate this. If I were to have a exit cutscene, I would put an additional playable director here and link that to a different timeline asset. So I'm going to delete this out though, just I wanted to show you. Okay, intro, so I'm going to click add component, click playable director. Okay, so this is my playable director component. You can see the little director's chair there. And this is looking for a timeline asset right here. Now, if you click this little bullseye, it'll show you all of the timeline assets inside of your project. So you can do that and then select it if you named it properly, or you can just drag it in from down here. Either way is fine. Okay. Let's see here. Lastly, I'm going to set up my workspace. You can see right here that I have my game and my scene view. We can drag these anywhere and it'll just go like that. What I like as a workspace for this is I like my scene on the right, my game on the left, because I do want to see what the cutscene will look like in game with this aspect ratio. And I'm also going to need my timeline asset window. Now this is going to be where we're putting our keyframes when we're creating our cutscenes. So if you go to Window, go to Sequencing and Timeline, this new window will pop up. I'm going to drag this down to the bottom of either one of these windows. So let's drag it down to the bottom of scene. And then I'm going to drag my game right next to scene. So this is what I want to end up with. I want my game cutscene preview over here, my scene on the left where I can move around objects when I'm animating, and I want my timeline on the bottom. This is going to be your base of what you need, and then if you have all this set up, you should be ready to start creating objects and then starting to create our cutscene. So we will do that next.